I'ma need you to brush your teeth because your breath smell hot as fuck over the phone, okay?
Hey nigga, what time is it?
What time is it? Why the fuck would I know?
It's time to take the shaboing boing out your mouth. You look like a Nation of Islam NPC.
Nigga, you look like an AI generated Franklin Douglas. That's why your girl left you with a I'm just focusing on me now text. I was with it when you drafted it.
At least I didn't let that Q-Dog scoop my girl up when we was at that probate after party last Tuesday. And I'm still waiting on that 20 from Cash App because you wanted to skip the line. Didn't you say that you do unspeakable things to Harley Quinn on Twitter after you watched Batman the animated series?
Nigga, you fuck actual white women.
I deny all of the white woman allegations forged against me.
My brother in Christ, we caught you 4K, 1080p, 60 FPS at Whole Foods buying Khalifa oat milk, bro. 2 sandals, no socks.
Anyways, you seen that last episode of Snowfall yet?
Shit, not yet. I'm gonna tap in and fuck with you later, okay?
Alright, bet. I'll hit you up later.
Bet.
Bet.
Alright.
Alright.
Cool.
Bet.
I needed that. Are you tired? Because boy am I, I'm just down horrendous. But are you also tired of being limited by geo restrictions when you're trying to stream your favorite shows online? Well, look no further than Atlas VPN. With Atlas VPN, you can easily bypass those pesky restrictions and access content from around the world, including popular shows like Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Don't believe me? We'll just ask Detective Terry Jeffords, because he knows firsthand how frustrating it can be to miss out on the latest episodes of your favorite shows.
It's taking too long! I'm gonna miss the farmer's market!
But with Atlas VPN, Terry is able to stay up to date on all the latest hijinks of the 9-9 without any interruptions. Not only does Atlas VPN offer unlimited access to streaming services, but it also provides top-notch security and privacy features. So now you can enjoy your favorite shows without having to worry about your personal information being compromised. Go ahead in my description box and click on the link and grab the big deal from Atlas VPN, because now premium is $1.83 per month plus 3 months free. And with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Protect your privacy and get the many benefits of Atlas VPN for an incredibly, ridiculously low price. You can take this deal by clicking the link, like I said in my description. Be quick, because it's a limited time offer. So if you're ready to join Terry and the rest of the 9-9 in their crime-fighting adventures, head over to Atlas VPN and start streaming today.
God bless us, everyone.
Yeah! One last time, go ahead and grab Atlas VPN Premium for $1.83 per month plus 3 months extra with a 30-day money-back guarantee using my link in the description. Thanks to Atlas VPN, and now let's get back to the video. That's Tayo. This is Color Mind, a place where I like to talk about things that I've thought about, so maybe you can just think about them too. And today, I want to talk about male friendship and what the fuck is going on with them, because in case you haven't heard, men are in a recession. A friendship recession. In fact, according to a recent American survey report, men have fewer social ties overall than they used to, with only about 27% of men in 2021 saying they had at least 6 close friends, compared to 55% in 1990.
Ask a grown man, be like, hey, who's your best friend? They'll be like, when I was 8? Like, Andrew Behrens? I haven't thought about him in 28 years.
I'm lonely because I ain't got no friends. Everybody stop liking me, son. So what I'm supposed to do? What I'm supposed to do?
The most unstable nations in the world have one thing in common, and that is they have too many lonely, broke, and alone men.
My blanket disclaimer for this whole video is that this is very primarily a cis-het male problem. So that's the who and the why of how I want to approach this subject. If you don't have the energy to empathize with straight dudes, I get it. I feel you. I promise, come back next week. We'll talk about something way more exciting, like the politics of de-radicalization. And Pixar's Ratatouille. Yeah, that's gonna be a banger. But for many men like me, this is a subject that we almost never get to spend breath on. It's too cringy, too soft. Why does nigga trying to bring feelings to the smoke session? So what I want to try to do with this space, I guess, is try to create an understanding of the factors that cause men to lose their friends, why men are less satisfied in the friendships that they do have, and finally, what realistically are some ways that men can transcend those barriers in order to find and be better companions to each other.
So if we could start, tell me what your friendships were like when you were in grade school, like elementary, middle school. Where did they lean towards? How many friends did you have? Did you feel like a social kid? Things like that.
I rolled with a crew of problematic bachelors. We called ourselves the Rat Pack, and we smoked cigars every day during recess from grade 1 onward. Sorry. Anyways, so
wait, wait. Was that a bit?
That was a bit. I'm joking. I'm sorry.
Earliest memory of kindergarten, I already had friends, so I don't know how I made those friends as a kid because I didn't self-actualize until after, but apparently I got friends. It was a lot of like other male classmates, specifically because during recess, girls would go one way, boys would go another, and that was just kind of like the determining factor because they wanted to sit and talk, whereas the boys were busy like kicking kickballs at each other.
I had 1 or 2 friends. Like I had one specific grade school friend, probably from like 3rd grade to like 6th grade, that I was always around all the time. And then he kind of assimilated more into a friend group that I also assimilated to. And so there was like a bit of a pack. We used to go to Subway after school.
How big was that pack?
Oh, I mean, it was probably a group of dudes that was like 6 or 7.
Man, I remember a lot of things about my childhood. It's crazy. It's crazy.
That's all trauma.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
Where I grew up in the lower middle class suburbs of Maryland, my friends were not my friends. They were my bros, my squad, my brother them. Like a white man in 1619, these were my niggas. Or as we called ourselves, the fellas, on the roster we had Mustard. Mustard, or D for short, he was a sports prodigy. He played like a hybrid of Allen Iverson and Kyrie Irving. Crazy handles, insane speed that he seemed just to be able to like go in and out of like shifting gears. Looking back, I probably had a medium kind of boy crush on him, but it was because he was who I wanted to be. D had the most riz, even though he was the shortest, got attention simply because his reputation preceded him wherever we went. He just carried himself with that type of confidence that you have when you have your thing. For him, his thing was basketball, and you're the best at your thing. If Mustard was going to the function, we all wanted to go to the function. If Mustard cop brand new Balances, then we all cop in burgundy 498s from DTLR. As soon as your mom calls my mom to tell her that it's cool for your mom to drop us off there because, you know, like my mom is going to take us back. He just had that type of energy around him. Then we had Diggs, aka Dark-Skinned Vegeta. His house, which was 2 doors down from mine, was home base for our lot. We chilled at his house for what sometimes felt like days. He had this really cool Jamaican mother who told us if we ever needed a safe space to run to, that we could call it Pier. And I fucked with Stefan, not only because, you know, we were at his house all the time and he had all the good games, but because he was always the man with the plan. He set up the moves that we would pick from every weekend. He was very much the Lancer to Mustard's main character energy. Next, we had Wes, aka our resident tall light skin. He was the unequivocal Drake nigga of the group. Typed to post a Instagram selfie saying I'm him at 4 p.m. and a Tumblr post quoting Frank Ocean lyrics at 4 a.m. Nastiest nigga that I ever knew. He would openly discuss and rank his favorite porn stars. Yeah, honestly, that nigga was just always thinking about either women or football, which is why sometimes we did call him Falcon West. And the thing about him is that he was really cool to play with. He just had like a terrible temper, but ultimately was super loyal. Finally, we had Cheeseburger, aka Burger, who was this 6'3", 320 offensive lineman that played college football while we were growing up. who was our definite resident himbo of the group and really showed me the type of man that I wanted to be, because he was the one that had the whip that we all used to get from place to place, and he took care of his brother, his cousin, and his mother, all while still making time to come play with us. And I think I just always thought that was really cool, and he was definitely the most sensitive of the bunch. The only one that I saw cry, I think, in like the 10 or like 13 years that we were all friends. And then there was me, the new guy who came around when I was like 10 years old because my parents wouldn't let me cross the street until I was 10 years old, which I think sort of explains a lot of what's going on here. But I was the smart one, the African one, which was fun for me in the early 2000s, the fat one, which was good for my eating disorder, and on a good day, soft wind chilling our skin in the deep fuzz that is Baltimore summer, there could be as many as 14 of us descending from a hilltop, ready to wash ourselves in the itchy scent of grass and sweat. Those days from like 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., we'd play football, basketball, and kickball until our legs gave out under the weight of our own heaving breaths. Which is wild, because 8 a.m., like, I don't even wake up at 8 a.m. now unless I have a meeting at 9 a.m. And that's only because I'm calling my aunt to figure out what kind of hex I need to put on the motherfucker that's gonna do a 9 a.m. meeting, you know?
Cringe. There's no other word for it. This makes me cringe. It's embarrassing.
So growing up with the fellas, I did notice these different dynamics that were forming between me and my friends, even if I didn't always get them. Like how we always did with Mustard One, and even if nobody was really down for the move until Mustard walked in and was down, but also people constantly talked about not liking dick riding or being told what to do, or how the best things to talk about if you wanted any sort of prolonged conversation would be the current storyline on SmackDown, whether or not Andrew Luck was going to be the savior of the Colts, and if Wes was around, a Bella Danger. No, you're not getting a picture of that, you fucking perv. We did talk about music, but not deeply and not often, and we didn't talk about ourselves unless it was absolutely necessary, pulling somebody out the trenches type shit. And to me, and probably most people, this is a natural form of male friendship, a sports team, a cartel, or some sort of nascent gang forming around proximity and piss jokes. What Boys Will Be Boys meant to me growing up was that boys play rough with each other. They don't talk as much as they direct each other into the next group activity, and they like to know what the rules are and to be in charge of said rules. If girls made packs, boys made parties. For example, in the study of conversations among children in an urban black neighborhood, Marjorie Harness Goodwin found that when they were engaged in shared tasks, groups of boys more often used direct commands like go get the pliers that marked hierarchy, while groups of girls more often use words like or language like let's or we gotta get the pliers that generated action in a collaborative way. In her book, Gender Play, Barry Thorne questions the validity of such stereotypes like boys often play outdoors and their activities take up more space than those of girls, that they form flocks, gangs, teams, or groups of buddies, while girls organize themselves into smaller, more intimate groups or friendship pairs. Mama Thorne is like, but do it really be like that though? I mean, are boys and girls simply different cultures? It's nice and tidy, sure, but the point of sociology is to find out how people actually behave, not how we like them to. And the issue with the different cultures' approach to gender is that it's based on vague connotations and dichotomies that girls are cute and boys are rough, when, I mean, we all love dainty funk. It exaggerates gender differences and ignores within gender variation. Barry Thorne again. When kids maneuver to form same-gendered groups on the playground or organize a kickball game as boys against the girls, they produce a sense of gender as dichotomy and opposition. And when boys and girls work cooperatively on a classroom project, they actively undermine a sense of gender as opposition. Gender is not something one passively is or has. We do gender. It's a performance of both grand and glib proportions. So if you recognize that gender is a social process, something that we act out rather than embody indefinitely, it's easy to notice how we start this improv in childhood. Boys and girls intermingle in groups and in pairs all the time, so no, boys don't just belong to an NFL-sized roster, nor does every girl make a blood pact with two other girls in their 3rd grade math class. Actually, femmes, could you comment down below and confirm this? Please. Shame on me. I did not do the research beforehand on this. I did not look this up. I might be spreading misinformation. I think about the time I spent with Q, my best friend for most of middle and high school. He was this tall, light-skinned boy who was amazing at drawing, had a fucked up sense of humor, and a heart of gold, and eyes that always seemed to say, I don't know what exactly is going on, but I want to help you. He's alive, by the way. I don't know. Why am I speaking in past tense? For me, this is where I discovered true friendship and connection, or at least a feeling so strong that I wanted to give it a name, put a tone to its sound. With Q, we wouldn't talk about sports or shoes like I would with the fellas. We talk about non-shonen anime and music and skateboarding. Of course, those fandoms aren't really different from one another, just different halls to run around the echoes of. Art is art and whatever the fuck. But it was only when Q and I, that sounds like QAnon. It was only when Q and I had our conversations that it always expanded into discussions about death, legacy, and the desire to live a worthy life, and what that meant to us. You know, the type of dude bro philosophy that 8th graders engage in after seeing Death Note for the first time. Well, dude, have you ever heard of the trolley problem? I wasn't smoking in 8th grade. We just understood each other. Our genres of weirdo were certainly different. He was more Nirvana's Nevermind to my 808s and Heartbreak, but we held space for one another. We held love for one another. And this allowed me to explore parts of myself that I wouldn't dare test out in front of the fellas, not until I figured it out for myself at least. For example, I was always way too into music growing up, and I loved talking about hip hop with my friends, but it was only Q that knew that I wanted to sing, that I wanted to rap, that I wanted to make the music that I was talking about. Only with Q would I be so comfortable with that I would write, direct, and produce my first music video with him 10 years ago for a physics project. A video project that I can confirm is still being shown as an A+ example of the project today. And I honestly don't know. Should I show it? I shouldn't show it. I don't think I should show this. For the art, we gotta show it. Okay, show it. Roll it.
Check the read, project the read. Check out our propensity. Let me do the math. Cause y'all dum-dums have density. We biff that, our cash stacks. We make out like bandits. Let me slow down the detail. Cause Brownwood can't hear well.
So even though objectively I was spending less time listening to Lupe albums with Q than I was running 5 with the fellas, Q was the friend that knew me the most, that knew what I most wanted.
I remember like my 2 best guy friends when we were in grade like 1 through 3. Like that was, I remember I had maybe 3 years of like, I had my 2 best guy friends and we were like friends. Those are my boyfriends.
What were y'all into? What did y'all do?
We were annoying and we liked Star Wars to varying degrees. I think the idea was one of them was kind of a nerd that had all the video games, and one of them was kind of like a jockey dork that liked sports and didn't really know the video games, and I half knew the video games, and then we together would kind of invent shit. But there was a bit of a power hierarchy around like how much you knew about the video games and then how little you cared. Sorry, that's true. That's true. We used to pretend we were Sith Lords.
One of the main sources I'm pulling from for this discussion, apart from my own lived experience, is a 2013 book from Niobe titled Deep Secrets, Boys, Friendships, and the Crisis of Connection.
My best friend and I love each other. That's it. You have this thing that is so deep. It's within you. You can't explain it. It's just a thing that you know that that person is that person. And that is all that should be important in our friendship. I guess in life, sometimes 2 people can really, really understand each other and really have a trust, respect, and love for each other. It just happens. It's human nature. Justin, 15 years old.
This study on adolescent boys absolutely cooked and provided a ton of insight straight from the mouth of high school age boys, mostly Black, brown, and Asian boys in the New York City public school system. And I can say for me personally that a lot of this description mirrors my own experience.
As I grew on, I remember, because I only had male friends, I think when you start to pick up the patterns that young boys go through, where they kind of turn into assholes a little bit.
What do you mean exactly by they turn into assholes?
I'm talking like as you're exiting elementary school, you're entering middle school, and that like angst and like anger that you don't know where it comes from. It's puberty, it's hormones, it's life happening. It's you evolving into your awkward stage.
I now have mostly femme or non-binary friends, and it's kind of been that way since college, I think, in no small part because I kept trying to be more intimate with men without sounding sus. I tried to go deeper with men, and it just wasn't working. I felt like I was always hitting a wall. But it also wasn't always like that, I feel like. In Way's research, in fact, they found that the more boys reported not sharing their feelings with their friends and just figuring out things on their own instead, the higher their scores were for depressive symptoms. You need friends to talk to you sometimes. You know, like if you have no one to talk to, you don't have a friend, it's hard. You got to keep things bottled up inside. You might just start crying or whatever. Like if a family member is beating on you or something and you can't tell a friend, you might just go out and just, you know, do drugs, sell drugs, whatever. Steve, 10th grade. The boys in the study not only had intimate friendships, but were self-aware that this intimacy was essential for their mental health. Boys do in fact seek out and have emotionally intimate male friendships, and they know that these friendships are critical for their self-esteem, for surviving in the world. While they are familiar with the mandates of manhood, that doesn't mean they consistently adhere to them. Despite a culture that equates intimate friendships with being zesty or girlish, boys have them anyway, particularly in their early and middle adolescence. I loved my friends deeply. I spoke to them about all my stupid thoughts and bent over in support or laughter at theirs. I hugged them when I saw them, and I texted them that I missed them when I didn't. Not because, or at least not totally because, I was a dumb little boy who didn't know that boys aren't supposed to want to share secrets or affections with one another. I knew then, and I did it anyway, in secret, because we shared that strong of a bond, you know? And there was something about that connection that felt more important than the performance of masculinity that I was supposedly striving for.
You just described my situation, like, almost exactly, like, okay, I'm not an outlier. Yeah, like, as a kid, ton of friends of all genders. And then as just the years go by, your friend circles grow smaller, yeah, as they should, as you grow as people. And then, yeah, after college or after school, high school, and when college starts, it's like, you got to take care of this and you got to do this, you got to pay for this. And suddenly you as a person have a ton of responsibilities and you don't get to see your friends as much.
But it's weird. Something seems to shift in boys as they go through adolescence, particularly in the later stages. They start to talk less, they get the no homos, and most paradoxically, they begin to distance themselves from their friends despite citing a strong desire to maintain those close relationships. And I know that's true because, well, I haven't spoken to Q in like 5 or 6 years. Shit, I'm out of college now. Like 8 or 9? I doubt he's ever gonna see this, but if you see this, Q, I'm sorry. I'm a bad friend. I hope you're doing well. I see your stuff on Facebook sometimes. My guy. My nigga. All right. So what's going on here? Why do boys lose friends as they progress through puberty? How have your friendships changed since you were in high school? Like, my friendship with my best friend is fading. I'm saying it's still there, but... So, I mean, it's still there because we still do stuff together, but only once in a while. It's sad because he only lives 1 block away from me, and I get to do stuff with him less than I get to do stuff with people who are way further. Yo, it's like a DJ used his crossfader, started fading it slowly, and now I'm like... halfway through the crossfade. Carl, 12th grade. Studies since the 80s have shown that men secretly cherish the memories of the close male friends they had when they were younger. But for one reason or another, men seem to fall off with one another as they get older. Rather than simply being a period of progress, late adolescence for young men is also a period of profound loss. Where once as children we were allowed to be free-spirited, exploratory, and team-oriented, after high school these boys are now pushed to mature into men who are autonomous, emotionally stoic, and isolated. The necessary sacrifice required for this transformation is male friendship, and frankly any color of real connection at all with others.
Bro, you want to know the single fastest way for you to achieve anything? You want to get better grades, you want to get business success, you want to level up your physique. You want to know the single fastest way. You want to know the way to just turn on that fucking extra gear that you need to win. You need to keep in mind the competition.
In a way, the maturation process for boys is the discovery of a core betrayal. The feelings of love and intimacy that they had developed for their friends over countless afternoons of kickball and Smash Melee tournaments. The fact that they could share secrets and fears and vulnerabilities with one another as a marker of status and of trust was a trap. Now you've left yourself defenseless. All it takes is for one fight for a friend to become an op, and you've done all the dirty work for him, you dumb fuck. Only little boys would be so naive, so careless to open themselves up to their worst competition, other men. Those snakes hiding in the grass, death to them all. But now, I know. I don't need them. I don't trust nobody. Can't trust nobody these days. Boys through their high school years become more distrustful and less willing to be close with their male peers, and believe that such behavior, or even thinking about it, put them at risk for being labeled girly or gay. And I think it's worth it to emphasize just how pervasive these fears of betrayal became amongst the boys in the study as they continued through late adolescence and committed more and more to the bit of becoming a man. The circumstances that require boys to become adults in Western hegemony does something to the male psyche that turns anything else with a penis from a pal to a potential opponent.
But 90% of guys aren't fighters, 90% of guys aren't warriors. 90% of guys believe the conditioning that they went through. Are you one of them? It amazes me how many guys don't even realize that life is a competition for us.
The degree of distrust was different based on race and class, but the boys in the study often feared, particularly by the time that they were about 16 and older, getting played or being dissed by their male peers. Getting dissed meant having their friends spread their secrets, niggas lying on them in the name of a name, trying to go smack at their girlfriend, and speaking and or snitching to the feds. You know, teen shit.
You know I can't trust. I don't trust him too much. I had a friend and he tried to steal my tapes and my girlfriend. And you know I can't trust nobody else. I have a kind of friend, you know, but to have another best friend, that would be pretty hard now. Can't trust nobody else no more. Can't trust people no more. Before you could, but now, you know, when you got a girl and they think that she's cute, they still might try to go to rap to her and everything. You can't trust them like before, that they'll be serious. Like that friend I had in New York, my best friend, I could trust him with my girl, you know, he could trust him with his girl. People aren't like that anymore. Back then you could trust. Albert, 12th grade.
Okay, one really toxic thing that kind of we all got roped into, which is like a funny little story, was one day we was watching the Boondocks, right? We watch the Boondocks all the time, but there's this story where Huey, I don't remember the specific episode, but there's this pimp and he's like getting all these girls or whatever, right? And like someone thought that was cool, and someone thought to arrange a whole thing where we'd ask everyone in our class, like, who's hotter, Theob or other cousin who I won't mention, right? And I fucking lost. And that hurt my self-esteem. And that hurt my self-esteem.
That's when your villain arc started.
Yeah.
As boys start to internalize this idea that being a man means getting what you want on your own by any means necessary, and understand that their friends may not have their best interests at heart because of these facts of life, they start to be hypersensitive to any sense of trickery or slight coming from the men that they associate with. Like J. Cole said, if a real nigga hungry, he gonna eat your food.
That's the thing, they're destitute. And it's very hard to depend on somebody like that because they will backstab you for the slightest crumb of coot that they're just right when they see it. Because they're starving. This is what happens when people are starving.
Once a best friend is lost or commits a betrayal, the friendship is over, and a replacement for that friend is difficult, if not impossible, to find sometimes. It appears especially difficult during late adolescence.
One of my friends, who I considered to be like one of my best friends, joined a basketball team in middle school, and I didn't. Like, I just didn't want to. And so he started making the type of friends that you have on a sports team, where you are active together, you are congratulating. I don't know how to describe sports.
No, yeah, he started getting jock friends. You know, you got
right.
Yeah,
the jock friends. You're in locker rooms together. I keep making it weird, but like the camaraderie, right? Like there's a bit of a unit formed, and when you're outside the unit, it's just kind of like, hey, like whenever you're not practicing, like I'm around. Yeah. And it's easy to start like hating basketball as a sport because it took your friend. That one's personal.
When they were younger, their friendships were more intimate and trusting, but now something has changed, right? Something has broken the system that these boys knew in childhood, and in turn, it's broken their spirits as well. Resigning himself to the reality of his male peers, Malcolm says that he is no longer interested in pursuing a best friend.
I might talk with people, but it won't get real deep. There's nobody to talk to right now. No, I don't have a best friend. I had a couple like once when I was real young, around 10, and then when I was a freshman, and then me and this dude got real close. We was cool. But right now, nobody really, because it seems that as I've grown, you know, everybody just talk behind your back and stuff, you know. So I just let it go because it seems like nobody that can hold, well, not no people, but the people that I've been meeting can hold up to their actions. So I just don't really bother with it, you know, trying to make best friends.
And that's sad to hear because you need friends in this life to try to get through this clusterfuck that is consciousness without being able to bounce ideas off of other humans that you trust with the chaos that your thoughts is frankly doing it backwards, Chief. The myth that the key to getting the most out of life has anything to do with stoicism or detaching yourself from any and all emotions in order to become water or some shit is literally like selling snake oil, except the snake oil is some fucking nootropic pill being peddled by a crypto bro that'll keep you and your erection up for 24 hours before you need to see your local physician. What I mean is that it is bullshit. These boys' stories show what can happen in a population that must survive in a cultural context that links intimacy and emotional sensitivity with effeminate and submissive connotations. These boys have had to mature into men who were more autonomous, more emotionally stunted, more hyper individualistic as a means to survive in, you guessed it, I'm about to say it, patriarchy. We love it. We love her. As boys grow older, become more defensive, take the manly path of telling their secrets to no one, and often the choice of telling no one is seen as part of the natural process of maturity. Rather than resisting the path towards the loneliness that manhood insists on, boys simply become loners, even as a badge of honor at times. Because to become a man in this world is to be the single alpha, the lone wolf, the king trapped in his own castle. Yeah. To become a man is to be isolated. So why do boys think they lose friends?
I don't know. I feel like I defaulted into just hanging out with the girls and then having less friends, maybe. I don't know. No, just trying to, I don't know. I guess but you got, like, you get older, like you said, right? You get older, you start hanging out with the girls because it's not so, maybe, I suspect, like, it's not actually as socially acceptable to be geeking out about Sith Lords or whatever. So then it gets to, like, a talky phase of, like, relationality or, like, or at least moves to like sports or something. And you know, in that era, like I did well with the ladies socially, but not with the dudes. So this, for me, another big drop off, big life change was I got completely overtaken by mental illness in my teens, and I went from I just had like no friends, approximately. You know what I mean? Maybe like 2, mostly like women, but like I was just had a whole blacked out, just like hazed. Honestly, way too long of a story to tell. But coming out the other end of that, yeah, like these days, definitely, I don't have many male friends at all. So I'm not really, you know, I feel like I basically missed some stuff like throughout my whole life.
Boys do have a higher sense of truth about their annoying desire for intimacy, in their friendships. They know that they're being asked to make a sacrifice that they should not be forced to make as they enter manhood. But the cognitive dissonance is so great that they tend to cope by restating well-trodden, stereotypical, generic rationale, what we can call thin culture. And they do this rather than expressing what they know about their own needs and desires. By the time boys become juniors and seniors in high school, they've accepted that showing emotion of any kind besides rage and, well, yeah, around their male friends is basically a non-starter. So instead of talking about that tension that lay at the basis of all their interactions, girlfriends, work, and school schedules, as well as changes in location, have become safe reasons to explain the loss of friendship and trust in boyhood. Surprisingly, boys usually blamed girls directly for the loss of their male friendships. I'm sorry, I meant unsurprisingly. School assignments and working were also noted as serious impediments to spending time in the studies.
I think high school is set up against the idea of having friends. I think because, right, in elementary school, you're with the same people most of the time. In middle school, you get divided up. And in high school, you just get divided further. And especially, I was on a quarter system, so I would have classmates around me for about 3 months. And it's like, you can chat, you can be friends, and then as soon as you're in a different class, they're gone.
However, boys know, just as adults, that when you want to find time to spend time with friends, you'll find the time. And even though this is a thin culture explanation, it also makes sense when we look at it through the lens of boys not being willing to find the time to be with their male friends when the cost of maintaining their close male relationships are so high, require such performance from them. And finally, the boys in Deep Secrets claim to lose close relationships when their friends moved away. Continual relocation is not necessarily an American phenomenon, but is especially frequent among low-income groups, and thus is particularly relevant for poor and working class youth that were in the book study.
I can only say about my life experience, I find myself to have been atypical. And I don't mean that just to ratify some mythology about being a non-binary soul or whatever the fuck. I just all of my life experience in general has been pretty atypical, asynchronous, and I would say including as a man, as a boy, and just socially and moving around and having a kind of not normal environment that I was raised in. You know what I mean? We didn't stay in one place, and we didn't even move around for a reason that people would relate to. My dad was in the army or something.
But it's clear that moving away your friends, relocating, is not the only source of disruption. Boys who had not experienced such mobility, who didn't move around as much, spoke in similar ways as the boys who did move around did.
You go to college, and if it's out of state, then you're a state away from your friend, and long distance will kill relationships, and they will also kill friendships.
The variations among boys' experiences of friendship, mixed with the pervasive theme of loss and distrust by late adolescents, suggest that these thin cultural interpretations are not capturing the full story. So, is there a thicker story also suggested by the fact that boys rarely find new best friends after they lose their best friends in middle school, even though they really do want those innocent, sharing your secret type homies after high school? Well, just like my girl, it get thick. Emil Durkheim, a sociologist of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, described the process of increased alienation as a result of a mismatch between the norms of a society and an individual's needs or circumstances as anomie. While Durkheim used the term to describe the symptoms of a lack of norms in society, he also used it to describe the symptoms of an overly rigid society where rules are outdated yet entirely too entrenched to be removed from mass culture. Durkheim's theory of anomie points to the possibility that our increased social disconnection, alienation, and loneliness are a product of a society constricted by a sort of hegemonic belt of its own norms, standards, and goals that don't reflect people's desires, needs, or true circumstances. Listen, you used to be able to wear pink in 1685. You used to be able to rock the Louis V heels when you wanted to stunt at the functions in 1785. You used to be able to cuddle with the bros in the winter for warmth in 1885. You could even rock a crop top in 1985 and not worry about sending out the wrong vibe. The way neoliberalism and patriarchy are set up, men have to atomize themselves more and more into the bare essentials of being a man, which is having power and being seen as powerful. But that doesn't leave a lot of room for expression, for compassion, for even true rest. These thick culture explanations for the loss of intimate friendships focus more on the conventions of masculinity itself and the implicit homophobia and sexism that discourages such friendships among boys and men from happening in the first place. They draw attention to the ways in which these conventions and the gender belts associated with them have grown more and more rigid as we have become more socially progressive, revealing a powerful backlash to women's and gays' rights. There's this telling story about what we do and don't expect from boys in Deep Secrets that I want to read. It's a little long though.
Sitting in a conference room with my graduate students at New York University, I tell a story of a boy who, at 7, told me that he thought he was good at understanding his best friend's feelings. The students, all of whom are sensitive to issues of homophobia and other vestiges of patriarchy, begin to smile knowingly. I ask them why, and they say that perhaps this boy was beginning to experience same-sex attractions. Were I not so acutely aware of my American culture that equates feelings between boys as evidence of sexual orientation, I would have been surprised by their reactions. Experiences like these happen frequently. A few months ago, a friend told me that she thinks her brother's oldest son is gay. When I asked for reasons, she quickly responds, "He takes his friendships with other boys so seriously and is so distraught when they betray him." Rather than seeing this behavior as evidence of his emotional depth and maturity, my friend sees it as a sign of the boy's sexual orientation.
And yet, the equations of emotions and intimacy with a sex and sexual orientation is pretty historically new and culturally specific. Historian Stephanie Coots notes that in earlier centuries, no one thought it was unwomanly to be hard-headed in business or unmanly to weep. But as economic production moved outside the household, the work activities and emotional responsibilities of men and women began to diverge. Men increasingly labored in impersonal institutions that required that feelings be kept under wraps, and the works that wives did at home focused less on producing goods and more on providing a haven for husband and children.
Okay, so with that being said, what would you think if we were kind of like trying to create like a top 3 list of the barriers that you see in men making friends with other men, especially once they get out of school? What's like, because that's a real big thing, right? There's a real jadedness that comes out of boys once they turn into men that makes it like, besides the fact that we're already we're already struggling to keep the connections we do have. Once we lose those connections, it's doubly as hard to go find a new friend. And right. That's really where a lot of the friendlessness comes from. Like, men aren't going out to try to make a new friend because it's scary and it's hard. But you know, what do you think some of those barriers are that's making it that way?
Well, if it's a top 3, then it has to be like capitalism, patriarchy, and imperialism, right? And those things, like, they have very clear one-to-one like explanations, but they also have, in essence, especially when we talk about them in totality, they represent sort of obviously like systemic, but like I don't want to sound like naturalistic about these things because I think things change, but they are sort of endemic to life, right? Like, they are sort of like these extremely, like, they are the forces of natural, like, not natural life, but the forces of social life, the forces of economic life, forces of political life, right? And so everything is shaped by them, right? And so within them, you can find like these singular things, like, for instance, when we talk about work, right? When we talk about people needing to get jobs and wanting to be on top of things, financially free, et cetera, et cetera. These are the strains that are put on men. And of course, that's you got this pretty direct, like visible correlation with capitalism, right? Especially when we talk about the competitive sense of like trying to achieve more than others and trying to have your shit more together than others, and trying to be in a cycle of like, especially of constant like accumulation of not only wealth but accumulation of success, right? And you're never supposed to go back down. You're always supposed to be constantly going upward. This is a force that I think is extremely visible when we talk about what holds men back from even just having that time to be vulnerable. Because the time to be vulnerable is, if not seen as weak or not seen as like gay, you know, if even to the men that have sort of seen past those things or have more progressive views, like aren't, you know, bigoted, those men still suffer from it because the force that's compelling them is, I have to continue to get better. I have to continue to succeed, and I can't slow down and I can't move backward. So if I take an hour to hang with my bros and we're moving like back, we both realize that we're sad or that we have these problems, and we both just want time to sort of melt in that. Patriarchy shapes itself to capitalism, right? Because patriarchy predates capitalism, but it's also has always been a mode through which whatever systems of power that have existed at the time have shaped the social construction of life as a result. You know, when serfdom was the thing, patriarchy was there, and patriarchy was there to reinforce what the role of the man was in a household according to his class status. If he was a serf, if he was a landowner, if he was a noble, you know, nobility, the man has a role, and the man's role is to own. The man's role is to fight, to guide, to, you know, continuously prosper and whatever. Similarly to what we see in capitalism to this day, but with a lot of different colors, right? And nowadays with capitalism and what we see now, you know, in 2023, capitalism doesn't look the same way it did 100 years ago necessarily. But what we see is these forces, right, of, you know, continuous, strenuous push to constantly accumulate more, to constantly accrue more, to constantly improve more. This is a feature of capitalism, as more so a definition of capitalism, right? And as a result, it is the primary force that guides our lives. And when it takes shape with men, you know, through patriarchy, patriarchy allows there to, you know, patriarchy shapes the sort of gender roles that are necessary or that work best for that to continue. And so patriarchy says, well, okay, well then, so men, your job is to be the breadwinner, and your job is to be continuously, you know, financial freedom and to empower yourself and to grow. And then it'll have different sort of views to women and folks of different gender identities according to that patriarchal aspect. And the same will go with imperialism, of course, too, which it can be a bit nebulous of a term, but especially like when you're not a white guy, the goal is to sort of emerge past those boundaries that are placed upon you as perhaps a colonized person, for instance. So if you're not a European person of European descent and you're born into a Korean family in the United States, or a Nigerian family in the United States, a Dominican family, your goal is now not just to grow for growth's sake, or because it's your role as a man, but because you're continuing a lineage from your family and your ancestry that is very much trying to find some sort of liberation from these patterns and these systems. And the pressure is to perform, but also to emerge, right? To emerge victorious, and not doing so is like a failure on that part. So these things work together very tightly.
If you're a man watching this and you feel like you have less freedom, it's because you probably do. And white capitalist patriarchy took that away from you. And they keep taking away from us. All that space being eaten up with a mask, and a suit, a tie, and a belt that shrinks smaller and smaller until it becomes a noose.
Do you have anything else you want to say?
Just...
This is Blackburb. Clip so low, I ain't got no friends. Psych, the pressure been kicking my ass. Kicking the cans that are kicking bad habits. Cause I got that from my daddy. Caught up on image instead of the vision. Feel like the nest on the Pistons. Crashing the paint, he a bad boy. Yeah, Blackburb, that's a sound choice. And how many of us were friends? Got friends, we're friends. Got time, got space, got vent. 2 times, got play, got spin. How many of us were friends? Can't trust them.
got really bumpy towards the end.
Masculinity is not only standardized, but also racialized and filtered through class conditions. In American culture, black boys are considered more masculine than white boys or Latinx boys, and working class boys are perceived as more masculine than middle class or upper class boys.
The thing that they noticed is that working class black boys tended to have more intimate friendships because, as in friendships where they share everything, because of what you were talking about, because of the survivability of all of it. Like when I grew up in Baltimore, like it was much more normal for me to ask 5'4" to get something at a 7-Eleven or to ask for some gas, because we all knew that we might not have money this week, or our parents might not have had money this week. And that very much changed when I went to high school and I was like floating with more upper middle class, like rich people at like an art school, to which I was like, oh, I feel like people don't people don't ask for money out here, or you're expected to pay your way, which also like fuels feelings of shame, because I'm like, of course I want to pay my way. Yeah. In what ways do you feel like the imperatives of blackness or black culture kind of intersect with in how you perform masculinity?
First of all, it was fathoming my own blackness, because I didn't even have a concept for it except that I was Southern Sudanese, you know? So at first it was fathoming it. And then as I, went through racism, I realized, okay, I am black. And I thought black and Southern Sudanese were just two in the same, you know what I mean? And so blackness to me kind of pushed me into the black boy categories, where I was playing basketball, I was playing sports, I was doing extracurriculars. I was very much trying to overcompensate too in class, because I was kind of belittled just for being in these higher course classes. So I just tried as hard as I could to try to surmount that whole, or at least what I perceived was that whole, like, this person's not looking at me, I want them to look at me, I want them to accept me like they do my white and Asian friends. You know what I mean?
Social scientists who have been focused on black people or on women's development specifically have been long interested in the processes of resistance to cultural conventions, stereotypes, and expectations that marginalized people have to navigate. Because women and, spoilers, men, in fact do gender, they accommodate to gender conventions in some circumstances, and they resist them and challenge them in other scenarios.
Their data indicated that as girls entered adolescence, they began to, quote, discover that their honest voices were jeopardizing their relationships, not only their personal relationships, but also their connection to the culture they were entering as young women, unquote. Studying hundreds of girls in both private and public schools, they find that girls aged 8 to 11 speak their minds freely with remarkable honesty and transparency. They resist norms of femininity that tell them to be nice, kind, and complicit with the demands of the adult female world. Once they hit adolescence, however, they began to experience a crisis of relationship, a crisis of whether to split from what they know about the world and keep their relationships, or speak what they know and lose their relationships. Either option meant taking themselves out of an authentic or honest relationships with themselves and with others. As girls enter adolescence, Gilligan notes, they, quote, show signs of a resistance to not growing up, but to losing their minds, unquote.
Psychologist Janie Ward developed a similar framework for understanding resistance in the case of black girls' social development. Ward defines two different types of resistance: resistance for survival and resistance for liberation. Resistance for survival is about quick fixes that offer short-term solutions. These strategies might make you feel better in the present, but in the long run, they won't help you in terms of strengthening the self-confidence and positive identity formation that you're looking for. Examples of resistance for survival include excessive autonomy at the expense of trusting anybody, substance abuse, issues in school, and eating disorders. Resistance for liberation, on the other hand, offers solutions that serve to empower young black girls through affirmative self-talk, as well as strengthening connections to the broader black community. In the same way, black boys share a paradox of living with a stereotype of being hypermasculine while having an ethnic and racial culture that values emotional expression. I mean, you ever see a group of niggas laugh?
I don't, like, white people, y'all just gotta try it, man. Like all these people. I see
not too much.
Okay, my bad. But I see everyone on Twitter like complaining, like, at 9 a.m. all the black people are loud. we're just fucking happy. Like we're just in community.
I'm sorry y'all hate your life and don't want to see your friends like that. But
yeah. Black people are more expressive with their feelings. You know what I mean? Whereas like when I'm in white circles, I have to be more constrictive of myself. But in my black circles, I was like, I just saw that woman beat a nigga ass. You know what I mean? Like I don't really like we're out here. We're black. We don't give a fuck.
And honestly, y'all gonna laugh and y'all gonna laugh and be like, "Did you get the video?" And I wonder what he did to make her so mad. Like, tell me the story. For young black men, the cool pose or acting hard would be seen as an example of resistance for survival. While its aim is to enhance feelings of social competence and self-esteem and convey a sense of pride, such strategies impede our ability as black men to thrive. Researchers have also found that those who act macho or stay in cool pose 24/7, i.e. never letting anyone pierce the veil for fear of utter collapse, are more likely to report low self-esteem. Boys that struggle with feelings of inadequacy not only need to touch grass, but other men. Okay, I think it's finally time we talk about the pink unicorn in the room.
On average, male friendships are pretty emotionally unsatisfying, and generally, men fear emotional and physical intimacy with each other. Oftentimes, dudes avoid intimacy because of a fear of being seen as gay.
As we discussed earlier, when boys enter middle to late adolescence, they begin to talk less. They turn 15 or 16 and suddenly they sound a lot more like gender stereotypes. They start using phrases such as no homo. They cringe at revealing intimate details about themselves, and they tell adults that they don't have time for their male friends, even though they really like to. But even more alarmingly, they start to dismiss the significance of that loss. As a consequence of needing to separate manliness from emotionality and its subsequent feminization and demonization, homophobia is so chronic and pervasive that most boys don't even notice that they are in pain, or if when they realize it as men, they have a hard time understanding where that discomfort comes from. Internalized homophobia encourages men to only compete with other men, and only certain types of relationships are possible between competitors. Close and meaningful relationships are difficult to maintain in a hyper-competitive environment because you have no room to explore your weaknesses and admit the problems you need to work on. Until some shit hits the fan and you realize you need to tell people your weaknesses in order to turn them into your strengths. Until you realize that knowing how, when, and who to ask for help is a strength in and of itself. Help is good, and you realize that you actually like talking about your fears, your weaknesses, hopes, dreams with the people that care about you. You like being understood, you like understanding. You like other people, which, bro, that's a little sus. A little zesty if you ask me. Couldn't beat me, you know? But tell me, truthfully, in those moments, when you're really present in them, do you ever feel less than a man, like they say? Because I won't lie, sometimes I do. When I'm enjoying something in the rain for the third time because of the way it tears out my heartstrings from my ashy chest, or when I'm out with my friends and we're both wearing earrings. Sometimes I do entertain the thought that perhaps indulging in all this does make me slightly less than a man. But then I wonder, am I feeling less than a man or more like a person? Boys enter their teenage years with a tremendous capacity and desire to engage in close and intimate friendships with other boys. Even though they have to deal with cultural dictates that discourage such behavior, boys know that if they say what's on their mind or in their hearts, if they speak freely and reveal what they see and hear and they know through their own experience, that they are in danger of losing their relationships. But if they don't say anything at all, they'll lose their authentic connection with people in general. Either way, it seems you'll always be alone. This leads to a population of grown men who feel bitter about how no one gets them, how they have all these associates but no true friend like they had in grade school, even though they haven't practiced the skills of communicating their needs in over 2 decades, because to be emotionally astute is something only for the birds and bitches, I guess, just not a man's forte. Here's a good video from Alexander Alvia that talks about how maybe there isn't really a crisis in male friendship and we should call a spade a spade. Straight men are so uncomfortable with their own internalized homophobia to the extent that they can't push the boundaries of their own intimacy contracts with each other, because to do so would be too similar to being a gay man for some fucking reason. Guys are so fucking dumb!
what are some barriers to making friends with other men now that you're out of school? What barriers you kind of see?
This is what I wanted to say to you. This is when you mentioned like having male friends. I was like, I know what there is to say because I think I kind of realized something, which is that I think that what I struggle with men generally, and I don't really know, it's that like when I'm with them, I'm like I'm an intense person anyways, but like I'm really looking for like really intimate emotional connection from people generally. Like I'm really like gazing in their eyes. I'm like, tell me about like your reality, like your soul and shit, right? And I find that I think actually someone in my life pointed out that that's like the reason in some ways that it's already going to be hard to talk to men, because like you're going to be looking for like them, like vulnerability and like passion and shit, whereas it seems like generally like men like to try to commune around some exterior subject. Like let's geek out about like sports or geek out about music, or like, you know what I mean? Like, we want even just to like, that's where their character comes out. Like they need to build trust by like, we need common interests, even if it's just fucking around, even if it's just being funny, smoking some weed, talking about whatever, you know what I mean? Like we need to build some common interest around some exterior thing. And then over time, like doing that together, then over time, then we have our vulnerable moments, and we have deeper friends. That seems to me to have been a common story, right? And I found that even amongst like those you know, the dude, like the even like the soft boy dudes, whatever it is, the normies versus the chads or whatever, it doesn't matter. But like even those guys, like that's how they maintain, was like we just keep showing up to do this stuff together and to laugh and to talk about whatever our common interests are, and then the soul bond occurs like peripherally as a consequence.
Right.
And I just can't start with like I love fucking around or like talking about like, you know, whatever. I'm like, I don't like, I want to know your heart like day one.
Like I'm perfectly fine with the idea of doing activities in order to like get to know someone. It's a very sort of like direct and brute force way of community, right? Because it relies on the proximity effect. It's like we all hoop on Saturday. And so over time, we're going to have a lot of stories from hooping on Saturdays that automatically breeds a sort of intimacy that I don't have to question because I knew that you were there. But then eventually you start realizing that like, I didn't know I could kind of skip all that stuff. I don't have to wait until like we're drunk with 3 beers and like after 3 years of knowing you to like ask you about what your dreams are.
And I also think that like that's the real part that stands out to me, because you're right about the proximity effect, and I actually think that matters a lot, is having like a kind of reason that you see somebody or like making an event out of it in some way. That's important. That's how you build community. You have to have something that you're doing. Most of the time you don't make friends just for the sake of having friends, and you can't make friends unless you go out and do some shit. So anyways, so I think the proximity effect thing is actually really valuable to know about. But I think the bigger thing is that like there's this trust element where like a dude needs to vet if you're cool or dangerous somehow, like before feeling comfortable to like have like a feeling.
You're always assumed to be an opponent until you like
a little bit
somehow
like
prove yourself.
You gotta like tame them like Chris Pratt and a Velociraptor. You gotta be like, no, I like jazz music. I like fucking I think SNL is cool, and you think SNL. Let's talk comedy. Let's fuck around and talk about comedy for like months and months and months, and then eventually maybe you're gonna message me when you're feeling upset. Like that seems like the formula with a lot of dudes, and I think it is like there's like you said, that lack, like that trust barrier wasn't really there back in grade 1 to my recollection.
It's interesting because I don't imagine a lot of young men reaching out to be friends with anybody. Like I think getting men to reach out is, getting boys to reach out in high school and those younger years is a pretty big ask, because most people are dealing with their own spike in hormones. They're feeling weird. It's puberty. Yeah, you know, it's not a good time. And I know I made the friends I did through associations. So I would make one friend, and then that friend would introduce me to another friend, and like I just kind of inserted my way in. But for most boys, I think you do need some kind of excuse to see them regularly first, right? You need to be in the same club, or like you said, go to the same gym. Something has to be set up for you to be in proximity to one another. Because you're right, it's not kindergarten. You can't walk up to someone and be like, "Nice shoes. Can we be best friends?"
I can't tell if like boys that like being around guys, like guys that hang out with a lot of guys, like I can't tell if like they are just completely like oblivious to this and they're just super comfortable in their like in how that works, and that we're the weird ones because we are like, this is like a system that repels us, that like we're alien invaders and we have to try to get the script right. Like I can't tell if like dudes, most guys are just like, fucking, you know, it's me and the fucking guys, it's fucking whatever. Like I think that might be true, that a lot of guys are like, you know, dudes.
I don't really know. I don't really think I have a criteria for men that are friends, and I don't think I've ever thought about it that deeply. More so it's just when someone does some fuck shit, I just cut them off. You know what I mean? I never really thought about the aspect of like, okay, what do I look in a friend? What do I search out for in a friend? Because I'm a very extroverted person, so I'll talk to like anyone, you know. So I don't really see the changes to a bigger extent other than the closer people I keep around me in my circles. But other than that, to like a larger extent, more so, it's just calling men out and then not being invited the next week. You know, it's like, hey, that was kind of a red pill thing, aren't you a misogynist? Then you argue in a group chat for like 3 hours, and then you get kicked out the group chat and you're not friends with them anymore because you said this about this. And like I experienced that with a lot of social issues. But other than that, no. And I would say masculinity and the performance of masculinity kind of deems us, has kind of corroded a lot of men, and a lot of men benefit from it to the extent of like they don't want to hop off that pedestal. So even if you call them out on it, even if I call them out on it, even if like I call out like my best friend on it, they're still going to keep doing it because they're rewarded for it, right? And no one's telling them that's a bad thing. It's kind of supported in their social settings. It's supported in the activities they do. So like that's how they're going to act. And fathoming that, then kind of deciding how I'm going to move around that is up to me.
It is hard for men to be friends with each other because traditional masculinity isn't shaped to be collaborative. It's meant to be hierarchical and competitive. And where there is hierarchy, there cannot be love, and there cannot be friendship. So the relevant questions then are not what social and emotional skills are boys missing. The real question is what fosters boys' abilities to have intimate male friendships in the first place. And before I give my take, let me know yours in the comments. Also, Patreon, please, Patreon, thank you. My take: boys just want to have fun. The things that are stopping them are a mix of internal and external factors, including things they understand like changing priorities, other relationships, and the way distance can disrupt any friendship, but also in the ways that force them to be not so aware of. Things like what becoming a man really entails, how it requires you to cleave off emotional parts of yourself like excess fat and turn to it stoically as you see it writhing on the floor. If this is manhood, then I'm good. I like having friends. I like depending on people and being depended on. I'm not ashamed to say that I don't find it all that appealing to live solely for myself. And TMI, but if I did base my desire on whether or not I specifically wanted to continue existing, then I probably wouldn't have turned 27 this year. I probably wouldn't have turned 21. What has kept me on this burning hunk of junk has been the relationships I've built with the people around me. The neighborhood gang I rode in mud with from sunrise until the street lights buzzed. The high school teammates who turned 2K into a therapy session. The poor introverts in uni that allowed me to adopt them like I wasn't the one looking to be rescued. When I was younger, I just wanted to belong. I would do anything to get that feeling of safety, be anyone you wanted me to be, perform the role that needed to be filled in the group. But then one day, I met other people who told me they already liked what they saw and I could just kind of do whatever. And for the most part, they weren't straight men. They were mostly black and brown, queer, femme, and non-binary folk.
Yeah, I kind of opted out of it in uni. Like
Opted out of
a
what?
lot of my friends opted out of that whole performance of masculinity with friend groups in uni because I was kind of over it. So a lot of my friends were this big group at McEwen of Black women and men. So specifically with tropes of masculinity, I don't really need to adhere to that now because, you know, I have friends that are women too. And like that was kind of what I did in college where like all that toxic shit was happening, where it was like men going body count for body count. I was like, this is like counterintuitive. I'm gonna just hang with the woman, you know? And like that did wonders for my own mental health. And I didn't even do that on like no slut like boy way. Like it was a genuine thing of like,
no, totally.
These men are performing very toxically, and like these women accept me for who I am. And these men, all they're trying to do is get these women. So like, let me just chill with them, you know? And like, I will be appraised for it from like my acquaintances because they weren't really in my circle, but like we chit and chatted, we said like waved hi in the hallways. And then on the other side of it, I would have emotional security because they're women and everything, and they kind of get how they will allow me to talk my talk.
So I think after a while, I sort of just wrote other men off. I found what I was looking for. I've been burnt too many times. Gender is fake anyway. I don't see a reason to reach out anymore. But the older I got, the more I realized that the few friendships that I have fostered with other men have been a foothold for me in some of my darkest moments. They gave me the insights and the words I needed when I needed it because, well, they got it in a way that my non-male, non-Black friends wouldn't or couldn't explain it to me the same way.
I want more Black male friends. Like I think about that a lot, you know, because when we go to like outings or like anything, and I'm like dancing and I'm doing Black dances, I'm the only one doing Black dances, and I get looked at crazy like I'm not the only one with rhythm. You know,
everybody else on the 1 and 3 and they're back confused. What are you doing?
Yeah, things like that. Things like
friendships require vulnerability, and I think men are kind of told to conquer things alone and like be an athlete and a businessman and farm Bitcoin or whatever. And I think they think that they're supposed to do it on their own, and maybe that affects how they treat other men, right? It might subtly register as competition, and you don't want to be vulnerable to competition. But just all the guys out there, like, you have to take risks. You have to give people your secrets and your insecurities and kind of hope that they hold on to them, because that's what friends will do. And it's hard finding guys who will protect your insecurities, but like, you gotta try, because people need friends, right? And if there is some kind of stigma preventing men from becoming friends as easy as anyone else on that spectrum, then I'd want to figure out what that is. And so at the very least, by testing the waters, you can learn more about yourself and how you operate.
A healthy male friendship is one that inherently has a very liberating or very healthy relationship with that social construct, as poisonous as it is, or as positive as, like, you know, if you could say some aspects of it are positive. Like if health is like, so as far as health is socially constructed, right? Like if you were to ask like, what's a really healthy health friendship? Like, then that's a friendship that you have a friend that you exercise with and you eat well with, and but you also engage with these ideas in a way that's not dogmatic, in a way that's not problematic, in a way that allows for both the liberation, both the seeing outside the box and also the playing within the box, in a way so that you don't, the point is not to have a necessitative like attachment to it, right? And I feel like if you're in a good relationship, like a really standard, like great male friendship, like you'll both have a comfortability playing a bit with that box, so as to sort of like meet with those like needs or to deal with what you like about it. But you're also both going to have like a lack of attachment to it, to where you understand that your bond is deeper, you understand that you're more valuable as human beings, and that at the end of the day, this is a construct, right? It's like a great teammate. almost. Like a great teammate on a team, like a sports team, it's like we have something deeper than just like we're both good at the sport. We have a relationship with the sport together that makes us both better at the sport and also see something more valuable than the sport. You know what I mean?
Last question. What do you wish you could talk more about with men and with your male friends?
I wish that more of my male friends would like take bubble baths and drink chartreuse and read a Jane Austen novel and call me on a little corded phone and like play with their hair while chatting to me about their day and emotions. That's what I really want. No, okay. I do kind of want that. Can I actually tell you a story? So here's the anecdote I can provide for, you know, if this counts as a wish or a piece of guidance or whatever. So there's this guy, his name's Bryson. And he's one of my best friends, and he's one of those dudes that I talked to. He was the only other guy that was into rap music, white guy, but you know, into rap music in this small town, and was also horrifically depressed, not popular. You know, for a stretch, he's figured it out now. He has way more guy friends than I do. He's like my only guy, but like, the reason I want to say is because we made rap music like in his mom's basement when we were like 15 years old. You know what I mean? Like really terrible rap music, but like we were friends. Like we showed up for each other and we were both outcasts, and you know, it made sense. And then we lost contact for like 3-4 years, something like that. Years though. And you know, I went off and we had separate lives, and he started a career, and I was in college for music, and I got a text completely out of the blue from Bryson, like from a Facebook message, because we, you know, still had each other on Facebook. And it was like a paragraph long thing. And what he said was, like, hi, I'm sorry that we fell out of touch, but I really value you as a person in my life, and I don't want like us to lose each other. And like, I care about you. And if you would have me, I'd be honored if you could pick a day and I'll show up wherever you are. I'll just drive to you and I'll buy a bottle of whatever you want. And I just want to catch up and start our friendship again. And and he did that, and we had that night, and we were still in each other's lives. And that was the difference, right? Is the balls, I think, and because I've experienced this with a lot of guys too, I think, is a lot of people that guys that get also like hurt if you don't reach out to them enough too. You know what I mean? And they start testing you, like, I'm gonna stop texting this person and see if they text me first kind of shit. Like this kind of catty thing. But like this, I think there's this like here's the stroke of heavenly light, right? Is someone like I think that more men should have like the masculinity and the strength to reach out to people that they love and tell them they love them, and they'll show up for them, and like to remind them of that shit, even if they haven't texted you back enough, right? Even if like whatever, it doesn't matter how long it's been. If I just think that would change lives, that would save lives, and me and Bryson now are these days closer than ever, and that a lot of that is worked through. I could text him and call him about like any weird feelings or whatever. Like that's one of my only guy friends, but specifically because he's the type of person that was like thinking like, I really loved CJ. What am I doing? Like, what is this? Like, I'm willing to put myself on the line here emotionally and vulnerably to get this. And because of that, we have each other, and we're going into business together this year. Like we're working together too. Wow. So it's like, that's true brotherhood. That's fucking, and that's life-saving. I wish I had more men in my life that would do that, as opposed to the other thing. I don't know exactly what it is, but yeah.
Men just want to have friends. And the thing that is stopping them is the patriarchy and their limited vision of masculinity. And to that I say, the fuck? You're a man, right? If you don't like some shit, change it. Why are you, as a man, letting yourself be cucked by emotions? Y'all, and by y'all I really mean like cis-het white dudes. This is the one time where trickle-down economics works. If y'all are at the top of this food chain, whatever y'all want is gonna become the new standard. That is how we change things. That is how we rise to our fullest potential. That is how we combat male loneliness, so we can finally deal with a real issue, like how they fucking canceled Inside Job because y'all keep wanting to watch Big Mouth, you motherfucking. Because that's the thing. Why don't you be a man and tell me about yourself? And as always, be kind.